Oh,
Duda puts your brand front and center. With Duda's extensive white label capabilities, you can make the entire editor your own. Use your own logo, your own domain, your own email address. Add even your own color palette. With Duda, your clients are your own.
well, that was a cool video. I love that. Welcome. We're going to wait a few minutes here. It's a Nat and Sammy show, or maybe it's the Sammy and Nat show, I think, today. Unlocking new revenue agencies' guides to profitable domain strategies, which I actually had to ask a couple minutes ago to make sure I got the right one. We're going to wait a few minutes here and just chat a little bit about what's going on. It would be great if everybody can open up the comments here and just let us know who's coming in here and where you're from, and if there's anything interesting you want to share. Normally you see a lot of the same people, which is great. Nobody's yet. Come on, you could do this. So we'll wait a little bit. We'll do a background on Sammy, and this should be pretty good today because this is something very interesting, and this all came about because I met Corey Cates several years ago at the Duda Summit, and she was telling me about this great new product called these specialty domains, and I thought, oh, this is kind of a good idea. And it took a little while, but our agency is using it, and they're cool. One of our own websites, we use it, a .agency, and have loved it. People have loved it, seen an increase in traffic. I don't know if that's because of it, but it didn't hurt it, which was good. It's something we use ourselves. So not only am I hosting this, but I'm a firm believer in it because this stuff is working. Okay. Wow. Nat is here. Who's Hans? Slovakia. Great. I love all the places around the world. Last one I did, we had someone from Mongolia, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And yeah, Slovakia here. One of my good friends is in Slovakia right now. I was actually in Slovakia a few months ago. It was a gorgeous place. There he is. Singapore. See, I love this. No one from America so far. Okay.
Singapore is
Yeah.
on my bucket list to visit. So, Reed, if you have any recommendations, I'll definitely be listening.
Yeah, great. Brazil. Felipe, if I pronounce that right, welcome. Been all over the world and not been to Brazil, not been to South America. Yeah, it must be crazy time in Singapore. Yeah, did you get up to go to this? Jordan? Wow. We're covering the world here. Anybody from America come in here because we have some really cool countries here. Slovakia, Singapore, Jordan, Brazil. Love it. We'll just wait a couple more minutes here. We'll kill 2 more minutes here, just recognizing people coming in here. Reed's going all over the place here. Where else have you been, Reed? Let's see here. Yeah, in Singapore, it's got to be pretty late or early, late. Sammy, have you been? Where have you been around the world?
None of these places actually, and they're all, amazing places. The closest place I've been to Jordan is Egypt. Closest place I've been to, let's see, Brazil is, I guess, Cuba.
Okay.
And haven't been nowhere near Slovakia, so still need to make the rounds.
Yeah, I think you need some time off, and you need to start getting out there.
For sure.
We have all these people that'll help us with some great restaurants and hotels and cities to go to. So, all right, we'll kick this off for real. So, oh, there we go. We got a Utah.
Nice.
Okay. Beautiful state of Utah. That's great. So, all right. So we'll kick it off. I'm Nat Rosasco, the founder of Olive Street Design. started, we were one of Duda's first agencies when they started, like month 2, and they can't get rid of me, or I can't get rid of them, whatever. But just we tried everything out there and love Duda better than anything. So we're going to stick forever. We've actually just passed our 4,000th website that we built on Duda. So that was great. We've got 1,365 direct customers, including the United Nations and Harvard University. So those are my 2 little brags there. So, Sammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. So a fun way I found to kind of learn about people's backgrounds in the domain industry is really understand what domains they've purchased. So I thought I'd share some of the kind of wonky things in the past to give you a little sense about who I am and my personality. So I used to work at Twitter way back, and obviously Twitter invented the hashtag. And while I was there, I was getting married and trying to figure out what was going to be our wedding hashtag. And I was racking my brain for different ideas for hashtags and couldn't think of anything, and thought there needed to be a service that created hashtags for you for weddings. And so I bought weddinghashtags.com. And for 6 weeks, I tried to get people to fill out a form on a website and for me to provide them with hashtags. I got 3 takers, so it wasn't a very successful endeavor, but wedding hashtags was one wedding related domain that I've purchased. Another one that was really interesting is I'm a massive foodie, and I bought the pickyeater.com for a eater style app, like love going to Michelin star restaurant, things on the eater list and infatuation. And so built a local app to aggregate all of that stuff, and bought pickyeater.com. And then have bought like kind of a variety of other fun domains. My current favorite is sam.my, which I purchased from the Malaysian government. You can actually buy CC TLDs, which I'll talk about a little later. They're country code TLDs. And .my is the Malaysian government TLD. And so if you go to sam.my, you'll see my blog there. And so given my disparate random ideas around domains and businesses, you can see how I ended up being the GM of a domain registrar, name.com. And we're based in Denver, and we have a few million customers, have been operating since 2003. And what we pride ourselves on is really getting people online with complete ease and zero sleaze. So we try to be the trusted partner in the space. We try to be the place you feel good about working with. And so, yeah, excited to talk about domains today and how you all can benefit from them.
Excellent. That's an interesting story. We talked a lot, but I didn't know that story. Interesting. So are you ready to go? And also anybody that's on this call right now, if you want to ask some questions, just layer them in there and we'll get to them as we go along. So feel free to put in whatever questions you have, because this is some cool stuff. And it's, as far as I was concerned, it was kind of things that I didn't know about it. And the more I learned about it, I was like, you know what, I need this for my agency. Take it away, Sammy.
Awesome. And just to confirm, okay, cool. I can see it now. So just wanted to make sure that's up. So yeah, we're here to talk about profitable domain strategies. I just told you a little bit about myself. We have kind of 3 main areas we want to talk about today. So domain fundamentals. In this section, we'll cover what is a domain, why it's relevant, how the industry is moving, and how you can benefit. The second part is really an overview of how you can get involved in domains as an agency. And then the last section is all about how to drive revenue and retention with your customers. So those are the 3 main areas we'll cover. Nat, obviously, will kind of jump in here and there and provide commentary. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. We'd love to make this kind of a running dialogue and make sure we get things answered as you see them. And then obviously we'll leave some room at the end for Q&A.
Excellent.
Cool. So diving right into the domain fundamentals section, I think if we do anything right today, it'll be give you a good grounding in what domains are and how you can benefit from them. I've worked really closely with agencies, both as a vendor, both as a platform, and have learned over time the pain points of agencies, how the margin structure works, being really time poor, being passed around from client to client and moving from thing to thing and just trying to create stability in your portfolio. And domains are the complete opposite of that. It's a very mature industry. It's been around forever. It's recurring revenue. It's as stable as the internet. It's a part of the internet, and it's something that can give you repeatable business over time and create stickier customers. So it's really critical to understand what a domain is and how it can provide value. And so that's what we'll seek to do here. So yeah, jumping right in from the basics, what is a domain name? If you're familiar with the domain name system or the DNS, it's the way people describe it is it's the phone book of the internet. And so everything that's hosted is a series of digits. And obviously you can't memorize every series of digits. It's just like you wouldn't memorize every friend's phone number. And so all those digits are turned into human readable text, which are domain names. And then we can look up the domain names really easily in order to get to those websites. And so that's what a domain name is essentially. It's a human readable address that allows you to access a piece of content that lives somewhere and is hosted somewhere on the web. It's not the same thing as a website. The website is kind of the content that's hosted, and the domain name is a mask for the IP address that allows you to get to where you need to go. So it's more analogous to a street address than it is analogous to like a website. And just in case you're curious, domain names have been around for over 40 years. And so it's a pretty mature, really remarkable part of the internet. It just works and no one really thinks about it, but it was an open protocol that was built a really long time ago by some really smart people that we can now all benefit from. And when you look at a domain name, I think most people are familiar with a domain name as an entire string. There's really two components to a domain name. So there's what we call a top level domain, which is on the right side of the dot, as you can see on the example here. And then there's the second level domain, which is on the left side of the dot, which you can see here where it says example. And so the top level domain, there's thousands of them. Obviously, the most famous one is com. That's the one that's used predominantly on the internet. But you also have ones like Studio, Bio, Pro, .ai, and a variety of different domain extensions that people use. And then the SLD is what you would put for whatever your brand is, your company, your product. This is the area where you can get creative and really make it match whatever your experience is. And so that's when you go to a domain name registrar, that's usually what you're looking to accomplish, is to get your second level domain or your SLD. And so when you put together the SLD and the TLD, you get a domain name, and those are the two components.
You know, I know, Sammy, when we talked about preparing for this, and these seem like really simple things, and I said, no, you know what, why don't you just go back to the beginning of this? Because every client we have knows nothing about domains, and we work with several hundred other agencies, and it's not something that all agencies have a real grasp of or think they need to. But as we go further into this, as we talk, is knowing this when your clients don't, it's a real edge for you to keep people sticky with your agency. So that's what I said. Let's start at the beginning here and go through it, because a lot of people just don't pay attention to this, and you really should, because it's an important differentiator for your business. Oh, that's my domain guy. Yeah, okay, call us. We'll take care of it, and then they're happy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think where most people stop is at the TLD. So they just say, we're going to use com and we're going to try to figure out how to make the com work. We'll add a prefix in front of it. We'll add a verb in front of it. We'll figure out how to make try oliveStreetDesign.com work, when there's so many options that you can do. Like you can do olivestreet.design, all kinds of fun ways and quirky ways you can make it work, make it shorter, make it punchy. And for a brand, you're not going to change your name because your second level domain doesn't exist. If your brand name is not available, you're less likely to change your name and more likely to change your domain name. And so you want to make sure people are aware of all the different domain extensions that they can access in order to maintain the name that they want to keep, but also have it point to somewhere that's short and memorable and easy to reach.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I didn't use it for 17 years until I met Corey and then Sammy. So No, I've got my team now, and this comes into play more than you think.
For sure. And then when you drill down kind of one layer deeper, and you look outside of just .com, .com is considered a generic TLD. It's one of the first 4 TLDs ever created. .edu was one of the other ones. .org was another one. And those are the ones people probably most commonly associate with generic TLDs. But there are other ones like .app and .store and .studio that you've probably seen on the internet that makes sense to also be aware of, because if you're creating an e-commerce store, you can probably find your brand name plus .store. If you're creating an art studio, you can probably find your brand name plus .studio. Same for your app, etc. Whereas your com might not be available. So generic TLDs are really an interesting place to play, and there's thousands of these generic TLDs now. And coincidentally, ICANN, which is the regulating body that manages all domains, is in the process of creating a submission, an application process where you can ask to own one of these TLDs if you come up with an extension that they think is viable. And so that's actually happening now. It's only ever happened twice in the last 40 years. So it's a particularly exciting time, to the degree you can say that, in the domain industry, for the domain industry, because there's going to be all kinds of endings coming available. An example being like .crypto doesn't exist currently, but will pretty soon. And there's a whole host of other ones like that that'll become available, that I'm happy to talk about offline. But generic TLDs are probably what most people are familiar with. But there's also CC-TLDs and brand TLDs. And CC-TLDs are really country code TLDs. So I mentioned earlier, I own sam.my, my being the abbreviation for the Malaysian government. And so that's a country code TLD. You can only buy that from those governments or resellers of those governments. And so that's also a really interesting one, because they tend to be 2 digits. So if you want a really short 2-digit TLD, CC-TLDs are great. And then the last one's not intuitive, but a brand TLD is essentially a company saying we want to own a TLD. And Apple's an example. So Apple owns .apple, .nike, .amazon, and these are mostly used internally, but they could also be used externally. So if you have an internal resourcing channel or some sort of directory, you can have it be directory.apple.com, and everyone within your company can access it. So those are really the 3 flavors of TLDs. For the most part, generic TLDs are where you're going to play, but CC-TLDs are also really viable ones, as the example I gave with my own name.
Why did you pick Malaysia?
Well, I only picked it because my name is Sammy and it ends in my.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So it's sam.
All right. I should
Obviously,
be kicked off this call. That didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
there's
God.
some things you can do like that too. Like Sammy Ahmed is .com is taken. So, but Sammy.com is taken, but I can get sam.my, or I can even get something like sammyom.med. Med is for medical purposes, but you can, if you meet certain criteria, you can get it. So I could be sammyom.med. So there's fun hacks you can do with them in order to get the right ending that you want, and you should definitely look out for those because they're creative, they stand out, and they set you apart.
And that was clever, and I will never forget that.
I think that's why people are not always super familiar with it. There it goes right there. So yeah, that's my Substack, and you can see it's sam.my. Anton, thank you for pulling that up. But yeah, so there's fun things you can do with your brand like that to hack it so that you can get a domain name that's really short, that's also creative.
Yeah, and not forgettable.
Not forgettable.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So kind of the next part of it is like, what's the value in the current market for these TLDs? So like what makes them powerful? So I mentioned they're memorable and descriptive. They're short. They're immediately recognizable. I think the descriptive part is really underrated. If you own a design studio, for instance, having .studio immediately tells people what you do and makes it more sticky versus just having a .com, which is more generic. It allows you to have a shorter domain name. Shorter things are obviously easier for us to keep in our heads, and so it allows for that. And then it's immediately recognizable, meaning if someone's using like a .llc, you know they're a company. If they're using a .dev, you know that it's probably a developer related solution. And so it just gives people the context they need to understand what your company does or what your product is, which makes them stick out a little more in the sea of domains. So question just came up, how important are domains as the keyword for SEO? Historically, this used to be really important. I would say Web 1.0, it was really critical that you made sure you had a descriptive domain name that told people exactly what you did. Now it's less important, and it's less important because Google got even smarter. Google used to rely on keyword signals and contextual signals to determine the URL and how it should categorize it in its search engine, but now it can actually extract sentiment from a URL and then determine what the SEO value of it should be. So historically was important, no longer critically important. It makes a small difference, but they communicate pretty openly in all their updates. It's not something you should be optimizing for, and it's a pretty negligible factor when it comes to SEO, which is a good thing because there's scarcity with domain names. And so if you couldn't get one that was descriptive, someone who does have that would have a monopoly on the search traffic in your category.
So that was one of the first questions I asked you in your team.
Yeah.
That was Hans. I was like, is that changing? And that was the answer, which was very interesting, because I think a lot of companies or clients come to us and ask us for, information on that, or which way to go, or is this a good enough domain name? So that was a great question and really good for all of us to know the answer to that one.
For sure.
Oh,
I mean, Google's even advising against doing that. And the reason here they're probably advising against doing it is because a practice called keyword stuffing became really popular, where people would essentially just stuff keywords in a URL in order to try to rank as the URL when the URL was important. So in this case, I would put something like sammydomainnames.com to get the domain name traffic, even though it's tangentially related to my name. So people would stuff the URLs with those keywords in order to conquest that traffic. And you don't need to do that anymore. And as shown there, they're actually advising against doing that going forward.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And so this is an example of how you can position yourself to get a domain name that you really like. So historically, obviously, you'd go with the com. It's generic, nondescript, not guaranteed. Here, you could do something that's like more specific. It's shorter. You don't have to sacrifice your name. As I mentioned, you don't need to reinvent the wheel and change your name. You can just change the ending to be .studio or .agency or .digital or some ending that makes sense for you while keeping your second level domain. And some people might ask, like, how viable are these generally? Like, how pervasive they are? Are they niche? Are they things that a lot of people use? And you can see this trend line over time. Com obviously has been dominant, always will be dominant. When you look at the startups that are sprouting in the past few years, you see com playing a much smaller role in domain names than it used to. So this chart is essentially showing the percentage of domain names at Y Combinator and Techstars, two of the big accelerators, the biggest accelerators in the world, and what percentage of their domain names are com versus something else. And so you can see AI obviously growing over time. You can see IO growing over time, and all others growing over time too. And this year we actually reached a really interesting milestone. For the first time ever, com actually decreased relative to the other ones. So it's still number one by a plurality, but all the other ones added together actually are 54% of the mix, where it's 46% of the mix. So it's the trend line's continuing to move in that direction, and it should give you more solace in using these domain names, because the signal in the market with the fastest growing companies is that these domain names are not going anywhere.
And that's a great chart to look at when somebody tells you I have to have a .com. The answer is no, not really. And here's why. And you show them this. That's great information there, Sammy.
Yeah. Not only does it not matter from an SEO perspective, but it also doesn't matter from an innovation perspective. The most innovative companies are using these new generic TLDs.
Which is a great way to go back to some clients and saying, if you want to move into something that the trendier, hotter companies that this is the direction people are going, it's a good story.
Yeah, and I mean these days it's almost a meme where if you want to increase your valuation as a company, just slap AI on there, and you're off. It's in this case it's just slap a .ai TLD on there, and you're off and running. And then in terms of another interesting point is in terms of availability, I think intuitively you can understand COM over time is more scarce. Like as more people take the COM and it continues to penetrate the market, it's going to be harder and harder for the domain that you want the exact match to be available. And everyone wants the exact match. You want your brand name. You don't want to add a prefix to it. You don't want to add a verb to it. You don't want to add the word the in front of it. You want just your name. And you can see in this graphic, over time, it's harder and harder to do that. And so in order to get your exact name, you actually have to, by virtue of the availability of the domains, move to a descriptive domain. You're not going to be able to get the COM unless you change your name. It's just the circumstance we're in with the scarcity of COM names. So it's smart to start thinking ahead and start to look at these domains as the future and the way forward, because for every new brand, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to get the second level domain that they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Very true.
Yep.
Call Sammy.
Yeah.
And domain.
Yeah. And so this is just reaffirming that it's this is the opposite end of the spectrum. So the first graphic showed it's harder to get a COM. And this graphic is showing it's easier to get a new GTLD. So you can get your own TLD this year 85% of the time. That number also will go down over time in the same way the COM one goes down over time. But for now, 85% of the time to be able to get your name is really awesome and higher than you would with COM. So it's a great time to lean into it.
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about these TLD myths. So we don't need to belabor them, but obviously for SEO purposes, credibility and trust and brand awareness, there's no concerns here. On the SEO side, Google really cares about two things. It's one, can we crawl your site? And two, can we index your site? If Google can crawl your site, it means you've done your technical SEO right. So you have the proper URL, the proper heading structures, the proper meta descriptions, and you have all the page stuff on page configured in ways where it can easily scan it, a crawler can figure it out, and it can start to figure out what to do with your website. That still holds true for AI and LLMs. They're essentially using the same taxonomy and the same schema to understand the value of your website. And so you always want to make sure the bones of that are right. SEO is basically being rebranded into AEO and GEO, but technical SEO is as relevant as ever and not going anywhere. And so for on-page elements, there's no ill effect for the rankings if you use a new TLD. And you saw the graphic earlier. And then for off-page, getting backlinks is as important as ever in creating that authority. And you can do that with these new TLDs. So there's no risk to getting backlinks and driving your authority score using these new GTLDs. So really no concerns on the SEO and discoverability side. And then on the credibility and trust side, the interesting thing is in a world where there's best practices and you can just ask ChatGPT for the best practices on how to do something, everything that looks too professional looks inauthentic. And so COM is that default. And when you see websites that are too manicured and are using a COM, now people tend to be a little more skeptical. So using a new generic TLD almost guarantees that there's a human behind it. You're telling someone I thought intentionally about my domain name and decided to use a descriptive one because it says something about me and is differentiated. And so you're actually able to build credibility and trust overall even more with these new GTLDs. Like if I had SammyAhmedDomain.com versus sam.my, I think you'd have a very different picture of who I am from just judging the book by its cover based on those two domain names. And so you can actually build a ton of trust by using them in specific ways as well. And then from a brand awareness perspective, I think this one's huge. People think you only need one domain and that's it. You actually want to try to get as many of your domains using your your brand name as possible for defensive purposes. So if your website is offensive, you're trying to acquire customers, acquiring all the other derivations of it is for defensive purposes and makes it so that your competitors can't take advantage of misspellings to redirect traffic to their websites. They can't use your name in negative ways or as they would say, in vain. And so there's all kinds of interesting ways where if you buy all the other TLDs, you can ensure as a brand you own your brand outright online and your online presence. And that could be a value add an agency provides to their clients, is saying, hey, we have a process by which we'll acquire all your brand names through our system and make sure that you have brand defense from your competitors. You've probably seen on the news, this happen all the time. It even happened with Google a while back, a few years ago. I think it was 12 years ago. They forgot to renew google.com and someone actually took it over. It ended up being an engineer who had left the company and was able to hold them hostage, but fortunately gave it back to them. So that happens all the time, and not even just on the primary one, but on all the other ones. There's all kinds of shenanigans you can do if you own someone's brand name.
Are you seeing this more and more, Sammy? Because I think this is really interesting and an interesting way to go back to a client to protect your brand, for brand protection. I really like that. Are you seeing more and more of that at name.com?
Yeah, it's a big thing for spoofing, especially when doing email. So if you get TLD and then you set up a professional email against it, and let's say it's like olivestreetdesign.com like it's nat at olivestreetdesign.com, and the L is actually an I. Someone could buy that misspelling, pretend to be you, and get your vendors or get your clients to do whatever you want. So Nat, actually, if you don't own that one, that's probably a good one for you. But it's very common, and it's actually getting increasingly more common because now people have agents and bots that can work on their behalf and do all this stuff and spin up sites and buy domains through MCPs and things like that really quickly. So it's becoming a much larger security problem than it has been historically. But through email, it's always been a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think after I get off of this, I'm going to look through all your extensions and buy a few, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a great defensive play, and it will guard you against some of these bad actors wanting to take advantage of your presence and the brands that you've built. So it also makes you look smart to your clients, that you're
exactly
on their behalf to make sure that they don't run into these issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. That's great. I think everyone should have that as a takeaway, and great.
For sure. Yeah. So the second part we want to talk about is really domains as a service. And so how do domains position you competitively with your clients? I think Hans had something here. I used to have a domain of a big retail bank with one typo. I was getting a lot of internal emails. Exactly. This could even be not nefarious. Like if you just want intel and to understand what's happening at a company, people will accidentally send you stuff like this. It's super common. And it sounds like, Hans, you've benefited from it. Cool. Yeah. So this section is really all about how you can position yourself against the opportunity when it comes to domains. So traditionally, a client of yours will work with multiple platforms, multiple IT departments, multiple vendors, and over time things have consolidated into like kind of omni platforms or more proprietary tech platforms. And so you want to also bring your domains in-house for a variety of reasons. So if you bring your domains in-house, one, you're creating a stickier customer. Domains renew at incredibly high rates. After the second year, for a lot of domains, they renew at over 80% renewal rate. So not everyone has an 80% retention rate for a customer, but if you have a service offering that retains at that rate, you at least keep that part of the business, which is great. In addition to that, every minute someone spends off your platform is a minute that they're kind of thinking about another customer. So you want to keep people in your ecosystem as much as possible. And so if you can do all your domain buying in one place, you also are able to keep them long-term. When they have a new initiative, when they have a new product, a new brand, they come to you, they say, hey, we're thinking about naming this product. one of these 6 names, you're helping them with a naming exercise. You can then say, oh, let me evaluate these names, do a trademark check for you, and let me actually also secure some of these domains. So in case you do use them, you can have them all. And if you don't use them, someone else can't use them. And it gives you the peace of mind that when you're ready to launch, you'll have access to them. So it puts you on a strategic footing from a product marketing perspective, in addition to the security stuff I mentioned earlier. And it's also a recurring revenue line that automatically renews. You can bolt on email products. If you have your own proprietary website building product, you can put that all in one place and track it in one area, and really extend the value that you're creating for the customer in ways that you can't with other products. It really all starts with the domain. When someone comes up with a product or a business or an idea, they immediately go to, let me go see, they give it a name, and then they immediately go see if that name is available at a domain registrar. So instead of going to insert name.com or other registrar, you can make sure they're emailing you and coming to you and saying, is this one available? Should we use this name? And you can create a strategic touch point and conversation around a product in the moment you're trying to create with a launch.
And the biggest time suck of all, and I'll be shocked if it isn't 100% of agencies have this, people don't know their login and password. And you spend a lot of time trying to find that out.
For sure. Yeah, and if there's one password that you use across your platform that they're aware of that they use, this just brings everything in-house and keeps it in one place. So it just gives you another tool to increase your retention rate, and just makes you even stickier for your client. And there's really 2 ways you can bring it in-house. On one end of the spectrum, you have iframes, which these are more kind of low-code, no-code solutions. An iframe, in a nutshell, is a code snippet that you place in your front end that allows you to have a pop-up or a modal that is a domain registrar in a box. So where there's value here is like you put in one code snippet and you have a solution that enables you to sell domains all in one place. The drawbacks of it are that the UI is really dependent on the partner you're working with. So they're not always the best UIs to deal with, and you don't have full control and flexibility over how you can customize the look. And they're not amazing for SEO because they decrease your site performance time. So iframes are great if you're thinking in the short term, I just want to get up and running with a domain solution, and you're like, I want to integrate something quickly. By all means, use an iframe. But if you think this is a long-term move, which I think for a lot of people it makes sense to make it a long-term move, coding against the API is probably your best bet. And APIs now are really easy to use. For example, our name.com API has an open API spec, so you can take our API, insert your favorite cursor or LLM powered vibe coding platform, and you can build out an experience using the API pretty quickly, and you can manage the entire process and the entire customization of it. It's great on SEO. It's more secure. It requires some server-side code, but it's not a lot. And for agencies that are kind of trading on their brand or their design as an expertise, this is 100% the direction to go in, because obviously your website is the first place people look to assess the quality of your work. And so if you're using the API, you can maintain your brand guidelines, you can maintain your animation patterns and all of that stuff. So I tend to recommend using APIs if you want to have a domain solution. And the way you set it up is essentially you have a default cost, and then you add some margin to it, and then you're able to sell them and buy and sell them long term. And Nat, I know you use, I think, an iframe. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think we went with the API, and we're very pleased with it.
Nice.
So it was a little heavier lift, but it wasn't. It as you said, for long term, it's the way to go.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think given the business that we're all in, the look and feel of the website matters a lot, and the API just allows you to create the experience that you love. And developers tend to love working with APIs and hate working with iframes. So it also speaks to the same language that your technical folks really care about.
Yep.
And the last section is really kind of the revenue and retention aspect of it. So we've touched on this a little bit, but the main benefit here is you're creating an ecosystem and you're creating a stickier customer. When you can centralize everything within your agency, you kind of create a 360 solution versus like a 90-degree solution or a 180 solution, which I guess is a bad solution. It enables you to really bring everything in-house, show your expertise, have them think of you for all things, and really grow your footprint. And most domain APIs are incredibly secure. You can bolt on products. They're high margin. They're kind of set it and forget it once you get them up and running. And so for the purposes of your business, it's high leverage because it's technology and it scales. And also if you do something like a brand security or a brand defense play, the awesome part about it is that you can buy hundreds of domains in bulk at one time. So you can literally have an interface where you put in your partner's brand name, and then you can acquire every single domain name on there for a few $1,000, and you profit off of that completely. And it's something that, like, obviously, like, you make money off of, they benefit from, and everyone's happy. And long term, if you're managing their domain portfolio, it's literally what's keeping their website up and running. It's going to be harder to move off the people who are keeping your website from having an outage or from running smoothly.
Yeah, most clients, they want to call one person. So this is always really a sticky point with them, because trying to call GoDaddy or Network Solutions or some of these other registrars, it's not easy for them. So keep it simple. Do them yourself. Do them within your agency. We have one login with name.com. We have hundreds of URLs in there, domains in there, and it's easy. And our clients are happy that we do it for them.
Totally. And the beauty too of, if you code against an API, you nearly always get an account manager. So there's problems that you may face, that your client may face, that if they're not working with you, they'll have no access to triaging the issue or working with authorities on securing your domains back if someone's hacked you and taken them away. But if you bring this in-house, then you essentially have access to, like, all the regulators, all the compliance people, and you can really be the hero in a security store if someone's taken over their domains or done something like that. Whereas on their own, it's like, good luck reaching out to customer support at some of these platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, yeah, just to kind of recap in this section, like, you want to secure your primary domain, and then all the other relevant variants. Obviously, that makes sense. I think Nat Hans had a question for you.
Yes, it's yes, we do. We'll get a domain name. We'll do is we do mark that up, but we set up the records and we make sure everything. So what Sammy was just alluding to is when people go in and touch certain things and you're not supposed to do those things, we make sure their email records or their MX records are set up right. The hosting records are set up 99% through Duda with our records there. But, for that, that's a service, and we'll charge, we'll make a markup on it, but we do some work and we make sure that the records are bulletproof. And when something does happen, we had two things today, this morning. Someone said my website went down. We're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Someone got a notification from their registrar and said, you're supposed to do this. They changed it. Their website went down. So we had to go in and update that for them, but we didn't control their domain. I have to bill them for it. We told them, he said, we're going to switch our domain to you. We don't need to do this again. So yeah, we make money, and we've got, I think, 800 domains in our account total. We make a little money off of them, but it's a nice amount. But for us, it's the sticky part. Their domain is with us. Everything is with us. Like, all right, we're not going to move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly painful to move, because when someone wants to move, obviously they're going to be concerned about what's happening with their website, and it's, for some people, it's just too much of a headache to bother, and so they just keep status quo, which I think is, if you're providing a good service, then that's great for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also said, like, another thing is, like, protecting against the misspellings and competitor confusion, having one centralized place where you can manage all the TLDs is incredibly helpful. Someone who knows all the passwords, someone who knows all the dashboards and how things are performing. You can handle all the renewals in one place too. The more renewals are happening in disparate platforms, the more likely they are to lapse without you realizing it. Or if someone leaves your company and a renewal is coming due and auto renew is not on, then your site can go down just by virtue of you not renewing the domain. And so when the agency or your partner is taking care of all that stuff for you, then you're less likely to see downtime as a result of that. The DNS is really complicated for people. Like I described it, like the analogy is the address book, but it's not as simple as a phone book. It's pretty complicated. You have to port over like the C name or the A name, and it's like, which one do we keep straight? You have to figure out the host. You have to wait for a registrar to approve it on one side before you can get it on the other side. And clients are not really going to want to deal with that stuff. So you can take on the technical hassle of the DNS. You also end up winning out there as well.
Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, next steps. So like if this sounds interesting to you, I think that the best ways you can approach this are just audit your current approach, figure out how you're currently handling domains or not handling them. What's happening in your portfolio? Do most of your customers manage them on their own? Do you manage them, but you manage them through multiple different registrars? If you do manage them through multiple registrars, I highly recommend you look at integration options. If you integrate an API, you can migrate them all to one place, consolidate everything very, very easily. And we can show you how to do that. And once you do the migration, all the renewals are in one dashboard. You can see what's coming up for availability. You can see where there's issues with like downtime, where there's DNS issues. And it's just a really great service you can provide your customers. And once you have that set up, you can obviously package it up as a service. As Nat mentioned, you can bill for it. You can come up with a package where all your domains are managed in one place. So the renewals of all the domains are baked into a cost plus whatever you want to charge for the service fees of making sure the technical configurations are right. And then it's an ongoing educational challenge, obviously, to make sure customers understand the value of owning all the different TLD variations, the consolidation, and why it's important to have them all in one place with one partner.
Yeah, that's a really good slide too, Sammy. This isn't necessarily the sexiest thing that you do as an agency, but I'll tell you, I just looked at it, and our revenue generated is tens of thousands of dollars a year for this, so it's not nothing. But I'm telling you, if a client said, yeah, I can go right to name.com and buy something directly for $10 or $12 or $15, whatever it is, and say, can I pay you 35 or 40 so I'd never have to look at this again? They would say, yes, do that. It's people don't want to do this. So it does make you look better. It's a pain point for people. They hate this. People don't even know where they're, we'll look up who is and say, all right, you're at name.com. You didn't know that. And it's a major pain point, and you take it away for them, and you control the client, you control the account, and you do it to give them better service overall. So, there's a lot to this slide that we're looking at here.
For sure. Yeah. And if you integrate the API too, now, like you mentioned, as you maybe charge a slight premium, you can also get the best costs if you integrate an API, because there's kind of scale baked into it. And so you actually end up securing the best costs for yourself and your client. And it's probably cheaper than 90% of the retail registrars, because it's the retail price is what's given versus the wholesale cost price, which is what a reseller would get.
Reed is asking about ongoing support is what I fully need to understand more. It's really getting the setup right.
Yep.
The records in there properly. And the other thing too is ongoing domain support. And Reed, you obviously do this because you've had people ask you this, but they also click things that they don't need. When we move over a lot of domains to our account, they're paying for things they didn't even know they needed. So really they'll pay us $50, whatever. And we just tell them, no, you didn't need to check this box. You didn't need to check this box. No, there's just, they don't know what's in there. And I'm seeing more and more, and a lot with another registrar, not named, but another very, very large one. It seems like they're sneakily putting some stuff in there that people are paying for that they had no idea that they were paying for and that they needed. And we just got one, a client sent it. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this. There are like 6 things in there. They said, well, I just thought I needed it. They told me I needed it, so I've been paying for it. I said, well, this phone call just saved you $110 a year. And they were happy about it. And they moved the domain to us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's why Name's mission, not to like toot our own horn, is like getting people online with complete ease and zero sleaze. It's because in the industry, there's really dark patterns and weird cart dynamics where things are bundled in weird ways, and you think you're getting a discount on something for a penny. It'll say a penny 1 year, and then you get to the cart and it's like a $50 purchase, and you're like, where did the other $49.99 come from?
Yeah.
And so that's incredibly common and something we're personally trying to fight against. And then to Reed's question about ongoing support too, this is where the value-added services come in. And so if you have a customer who has one domain, you can say, hey, like I went to our interface and I saw all these other domains that are your brand name that are unowned, and someone could buy them and redirect the traffic to their site. You're spending all this energy building your brand. Someone's just going to get all these misspelled versions of it, or the actual brand name with a different TLD, and they're just going to redirect traffic over to them. So you're doing all this effort to generate the traffic, and they're going to benefit from it. You should lock these down so no one has access to it. And we have tools where you can bulk buy all of them. And Reed, that's where the ongoing support comes in. In addition to that, a lot of businesses don't have professional email, so you can buy an email service and link it to the domain name. And that tends to professionalize the business really quickly. You can add security products where it makes sense. You can have different licenses for things like Google Workspace and like Google, like you could be managing like their Google Slides or their Sheets or all that sort of stuff. So there's all sorts of interesting things you get into once you play a bigger part in the domain space, and all of that is obviously incremental revenue.
So if this is interesting to people on this call, and I would think so if they signed up, who do they contact to get further information on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always happy to chat with people. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we can pin that to the channel. And if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'll actually give you a free domain at name.com. So if you just want to make the connection and say hi, just make sure you mention you came from the Duda webinar, and I'll give you a promo code for a free domain at name.com. But I'm happy. Yeah, I'm obviously happy to chat with people, to connect people with people on the team. Even if you're not 100% sure it's the right thing, we're always happy to just have a conversation about it and learn more about the use case. And we're always interested in talking to customers and clients. And so just love the idea of people reaching out. If you want to go through kind of a more conventional channel and you don't want to talk to me, you've heard enough from me, you can go to the name.com website, and at the top header, there's a link that says API. You can just click on that, look at documentation, look at the landing page, and just better understand the solution there for the API and the iframe. But either one of those two things would work, and yeah, happy to connect people.
And I would have to say, if Sammy said to connect with them, I would, because I was with GoDaddy for 15 years and I don't know anybody there, and there's no one to talk to in network solutions. You got a real live person that's really smart and won't push something down your throat. I would reach out to Sammy. I would do that. Sammy, another question is, if some of these agencies are on the webinar today and somebody has 50 domains in their account, or 20 or 300, is there, because you had mentioned something a little bit ago about mass migration, can they be migrated to you simply because it's not a simple thing to do, but you've got something you can do that with?
Yeah, so there's two ways typically, like you can do migrations. You can just do them at the renewal, and we have like endpoints in the API that allow for the transfers to happen as they renew. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. And then there's ways you can do bulk migrations, but that usually includes like a regulating body. And so that's not completely viable unless you have a massive portfolio. And so my recommendation is always when you're doing a migration, just connect to the transfer endpoint, and then you can migrate them over as they renew. That's the most natural way to do it.
Okay, that's great to know. I think a lot of people, it's like thinking you're scary. I don't want to move this. This is going to be a lot of work. But as you said, if it's expiring, it'll pull it from the. Well, does it do that automatically?
Yeah, it's all through the connection. So it's like they've created rails for all of this stuff to make it easy.
Excellent. That's good to know. I would think that's pretty valuable for everyone on this call if you want to do something like this. And the experience we've had so far has been just really, really good. Sammy's great to talk to. Any other questions? Come on, team here. SEO Charity. Thanks, Anton. We did a great website for SEO Charity for Anton's group in Europe there, and we love it. See how little stress he has? That cat looks so calm, and Anton looked calm there. You don't always get that look, so. Anything else? What else do we need to know, Sammy? What's of interest here? I'll tell you, the big takeaway I've had that I didn't really think about it is I know when I've talked to Corey before, we talked about using these domains for landing pages. We didn't talk about that at all, but I was thinking we've got some dentists, and if you wanted a landing page for a dentist, and we actually have one. I'm going to see the dentist tomorrow, and you want to get a custom domain for tooth implants .dental. I think it's a great way to add on some landing pages too, to get them that really descriptive domain. And I think that's interesting too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like over time, as these use cases become more apparent to people, you'll see higher and higher adoption. But yeah, like one way we've positioned them too is for some things, like you can use something like a .fyi, where it's like you just want to give someone a notification about a press release, and you don't want the press release to be on a business wire subdomain.
Yeah.
Say product name or company name .fyi, and people now can go to a centralized place for all your product releases. And those TLDs tend to be less expensive too. So they're easy to implement, easy to get, and they serve as kind of ephemeral landing pages. And you don't have to like overthink them and wonder about information structure or hierarchy on a page, where that sits in the subdomain. You can just have your own custom domain that you go directly to.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, with Duda, we can spin up a landing page in 30 minutes. So it costs us like $50 to do it. You get a custom domain extension and you're ready to go. So, all right, how many days it's required to migrate a domain on average? Let's say yours was expiring. How long does that take? Is it instantaneous? Is it?
It's not instantaneous because it takes like two to play here. It's like both registrars have to like make the connection. So on average, it's like 24 to 48 days, and it's quicker in the API because it's just like a more streamlined process, and you'll also have like a support person who can help guide you through it. Like there'll be a lot of hand holding and like white glove services there, but on average, it's like 24 to 48 hours. Someone said, why are some domain names so expensive? Because they belong to some squatters. Yeah, so domain names vary based on a variety of factors. Like if there's a big SEO profile behind one and a big speculation market behind it, it's going to be more expensive. If it's 2 to 6 characters, call it, usually it's more expensive. 7 characters or more is usually the cliff. If it's in an industry that's growing really fast, like .ai, that tends to be more expensive. So it's really based on the investor profile and the speculation of it. But if you see a number in the thousands, it's because someone is typically squatting on that name and has been for years. And you can look at the Whois records to see how long they've been squatting on it, which is kind of a fun exercise. And sometimes you'll see someone's owned this domain for 20 years. So it's someone who bought it early in the 90s or early 2000s and is banking on being able to sell it at a really expensive amount later on. And so that's what you're seeing there, Hans. And then do new domains come with SSL? So most registrars give you free SSL with every domain that's sold, but some of them don't. And SSL should be free for the most part. At Name, we used to charge for it, and now it's free to most people. And so if you use the API, it's free for everything that you do on there. So every domain through the API comes with SSL for free. And Google's been a huge champion of this. Like .app and .dev are owned by Google, and both of those since the inception have come with free SSL, which kind of set the standard for all other domains going forward.
Yeah.
So great question, Adrian.
Yeah. We're hitting the 1 hour mark. So we have done our job here. Sammy, you did a great job. One just real quick question. In general, are these domains more the same or not less expensive than a .com?
On average, they're significantly less expensive for the first year. The renewals are probably around .com or higher or lower. It's dependent on the actual TLD, but on the first year registration, it's for the most part going to be much cheaper.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And I know we had a good time. Thanks for the questions. Those are good questions. And I really hope, Reed, yep, open your eyes to a new opportunity. And if you ever want to email, any of you want to email me, Nat at Olive Street Design, you can do so. I answer everything, and I know Sammy does. We're very good about that. But it's something you haven't looked at and like, hey, I can make some money in this and make my clients happier. That's a good day.
For sure.
Duda puts your brand front and center. With Duda's extensive white label